Elvis was leaving the stage when he noticed a teenager in the crowd, tears streaming down her face. He stopped, walked over, and made one small gesture that would change her life forever. In this video, you'll see the exact moment it happened, and why she still calls it the greatest night of her life. In March 1974, at a Memphis concert, a 16-year-old fan in the third row stood frozen among 12,000 screaming fans. Tears streamed down her face as thousands of people around her jumped and cheered. She clutched her concert ticket with shaking hands, the same ticket her mother had saved for over 6 months. The teenager's family had just received devastating news. 3 weeks earlier, doctors had told them her father's cancer had spread. The treatments were expensive, and the medical bills had already forced them to sell their house. In 2 days, they would be moving into a tiny apartment across town. Her father was getting sicker by the week, and the family was drowning in debt they could never repay. This concert was supposed to be her 16th birthday present. Her mother had worked double shifts at the diner to afford these tickets, wanting to give her daughter one perfect night before their world completely fell apart. But standing there in the crowd, the girl felt the weight of everything crashing down at once. The bright lights made her think of the harsh fluorescent bulbs in her father's treatment room. This was meant to be the last chance for a memorable night before everything changed. Other fans started to notice the crying teenager. Some pointed and whispered. A few asked if she was okay, but she couldn't stop the tears. This wasn't teenage drama or excitement about meeting her idol. This was pure heartbreak. She was watching her family disappear piece by piece. Her father was dying. They had lost their home. Her dreams seemed impossible now. The woman next to her offered tissues, but the girl could barely see through her tears. She had tried so hard to be strong for her parents. She had smiled when they packed their belongings. She had pretended to be excited about this concert. But surrounded by all this joy and celebration, she couldn't pretend anymore. Her sobs grew louder as the opening act finished their set. She wanted to leave, but her mother had sacrificed so much for these tickets. The guilt made her cry even harder. She felt trapped between gratitude and grief. The other fans were here to escape their problems. She was drowning in hers. The arena lights dimmed as Elvis was about to appear. The crowd erupted in screams that shook the building. But the teenager's crying had become uncontrollable now. Her shoulders shook as she sobbed openly. The fans around her started to move away, giving her space. Some looked concerned. Others seemed annoyed that her tears were ruining their good time. She tried to wipe her face and pull herself together. She knew her mother was watching from the cheap seats in the back, probably worried about her daughter's breakdown. But the harder she tried to stop crying, the worse it got. She felt like she was suffocating under the weight of her family's problems. At 16 years old, she was carrying burdens that would break most adults. She had no idea that someone across the packed venue had already spotted her tears. Elvis walked onto the stage to thunderous applause. The crowd was electric. Midway through the show, during a quieter song, the stage lights dimmed slightly as he picked up his acoustic guitar. This was the moment when Elvis connected with his audience on a deeper level. Elvis possessed something most performers lacked. He could see individual faces even in massive crowds. While most artists would look out at a sea of people and perform, Elvis studied faces, noticed expressions, and picked up on emotions that others would miss completely. As he started the opening chords, something caught his eye. There, in the third row, a young girl was crying. Not the happy tears of an excited fan. These were deep, painful sobs that cut through the celebration around her. Elvis had seen thousands of crying fans over the years. This was different. This was raw grief. Most performers would have continued singing. The show must go on. That was the rule in entertainment. But Elvis paused mid-verse. He set his guitar against the microphone stand and squinted into the audience. The bright stage lights made it hard to see clearly, but he was determined to locate the source of that pain. The crowd grew confused. Their idol had gone completely silent. Elvis stood at the edge of the stage, scanning the third row with laser focus. His band members exchanged glances. They had seen Elvis do this before. When he sensed genuine suffering in his audience, he would stop everything. The music could wait. The guitarist kept playing softly to fill the silence. The crowd started whispering among themselves. Some fans called out, asking if Elvis was okay. But Elvis ignored them all. He was locked onto that crying teenager. His eyes never left her face. His longtime bodyguard watched from the side of the stage. He had worked as security for Elvis for years. He knew the protocols about fan interactions during concerts. But he also knew Elvis better than anyone. When the king made eye contact with him and gestured toward the third row, he understood immediately. Elvis walked to the very edge of the stage. The crowd pressed forward, thinking he was about to interact with the front row. Instead, Elvis leaned down and spoke quietly to his security team. His voice was barely audible over the crowd noise, but his message was clear. He wanted that crying girl brought backstage. The bodyguard hesitated for a moment. This wasn't standard procedure. Concert venues had rules about removing fans from their seats during shows, but Elvis wasn't backing down. The music stopped. The room held its breath. The king stepped back and signaled to his band to continue playing while he handled something important. Then he walked toward the backstage area, never taking his eyes off the teenager. The crowd was buzzing with confusion and excitement. They had no idea what was happening. This moment revealed something profound about Elvis's character. He could have easily finished his song and moved on. He could have sent a staff member to check on the fan later. Instead, he chose to stop his performance for one person's pain. His compassion was stronger than his commitment to entertainment. The bodyguard moved through the crowd toward the crying teenager. The other fans stepped aside, sensing something important was happening. The girl was still sobbing, completely unaware that the king of rock and roll had noticed her tears from across the packed arena. She had no idea her night was about to take a turn that would change everything. A security team member moved quickly through the crowd and approached the crying teenager. Her tears had soaked through the tissues someone had given her. He leaned down and spoke quietly in her ear. Elvis wanted to see her backstage. Right now. The girl looked around in confusion. This couldn't be real. She was nobody special. Just a crying teenager from a broken family. The security guard helped her navigate through the maze of barriers and equipment. The backstage area was cramped and dimly lit. Cables snaked across the floor. Road crew members rushed past carrying instruments and sound equipment. She wiped her eyes and tried to fix her hair. She felt embarrassed about her appearance. She hadn't expected to meet anyone important tonight. Elvis stood alone in a small room behind the stage. His white jumpsuit was soaked with sweat from the performance. When she walked in, he set down his water cup and gave her his complete attention. No distractions. No rush to get back to the show. She expected a quick handshake and photo opportunity. Maybe an autograph if she was lucky. Instead, Elvis pulled out a metal folding chair and asked her to sit down. He grabbed another chair for himself. Then he did something that shocked her completely. He asked why she was crying, not in a casual way. He wanted to know the real reason. The teenager hesitated at first. How could she explain her family's problems to someone who lived such a different life? But Elvis waited patiently. His eyes never left her face. So she told him everything. Her father's cancer diagnosis, the medical bills that had destroyed their savings, losing their house, having to quit school to work full-time, her dream of becoming a nurse that now seemed impossible. Elvis listened to every word without interrupting. He didn't offer empty sympathy or tell her things would work out fine. He didn't give her celebrity advice about staying positive. Instead, he pulled a small piece of paper from his pocket and wrote something down with a pen. His handwriting was careful and deliberate. Then he folded the paper and pressed it into her trembling hands. According to her later account, the paper contained a phone number written in Elvis's handwriting. Below the number was a simple message about calling someone who could help. She had mentioned wanting to become a nurse, and Elvis had been listening carefully to that detail. The girl didn't know what the phone number meant or who would answer when she called. Elvis didn't explain the specifics. He just told her to make the call and mention his name. He said someone would help her family and her education. She tried to ask questions, but Elvis was already walking toward the door. He needed to get back to his concert. 12,000 fans were waiting. Before leaving, Elvis turned back and looked directly at her. According to her recollection, he told her that difficult circumstances don't define a person's potential. He said her dreams were worth fighting for, no matter how impossible they seemed right now. Then he walked back toward the stage to finish his performance. The entire conversation had lasted less than 5 minutes. She stood alone in that backstage room, holding the piece of paper like it was made of gold. The numbers seemed so ordinary, so simple. Just 7 digits written in blue ink. But something about Elvis's confidence when he handed it to her suggested this was more than just a kind gesture. This was something concrete, something that would actually make a difference. As she made her way back to her seat, the teenager had no idea what would happen when she dialed that number. She clutched the paper tightly, afraid it might disappear. The rest of the concert passed in a blur. Her mind kept racing back to those whispered words and that mysterious phone number. 24 hours later, she would discover exactly what Elvis had set in motion. The teenager stared at that piece of paper for hours after getting home from the concert. The phone number seemed too simple, too ordinary. She had expected something magical from Elvis, not 7 digits written in blue ink. Her mother found her sitting at their kitchen table at midnight, still holding the paper like it might disappear. The next afternoon, she picked up their old rotary phone with trembling fingers. She dialed the number 3 times before actually letting it ring. Part of her expected a busy signal or a disconnected line. This had to be some kind of mistake. Famous people didn't really help random teenagers they met for 5 minutes. A professional voice answered on the second ring. The man said he had been expecting her call since yesterday morning. Elvis had already explained her entire situation to him over the phone. She sat down hard in her kitchen chair. Relief, disbelief, hope hit her one moment at a time. The conversation that followed changed everything. Elvis had put her in touch with someone who could arrange medical care for her father and job opportunities for her. The caller asked her to bring her father to a Memphis hospital the next morning. The medical treatment would be handled. Her family's biggest problem was about to disappear with one phone call. But the help didn't stop there. She was offered a part-time job at a medical clinic starting immediately. She could work 20 hours a week filing medical records and assisting nurses. The job would teach her basic healthcare skills while she finished high school. The pay was enough to help her family with their other expenses. The man explained that Elvis had helped him through some difficult times years earlier. The king had never asked for anything in return until yesterday. Elvis had called and described a teenage girl who wanted to become a nurse but couldn't afford medical school. This was his chance to pay back a favor. Then came the news that made her heart stop. The job came with access to educational support for young people pursuing medical careers. She would receive help with nursing school tuition if she maintained good grades and work performance. 24 hours ago, her family was facing bankruptcy, and her father was dying without proper medical care. Now, everything had changed with one phone call. Within 1 week, her father started cancer treatment at the Memphis hospital. The treatments were aggressive but effective. Her family moved into a small apartment near the medical center. She began working at the clinic every day after school, learning medical terminology and patient care basics. The other clinic employees had no idea that Elvis Presley had arranged her employment. That information stayed private. To everyone else, she was just a hard-working teenager who had applied for the job at the right time. She proved herself quickly, showing up early and staying late to learn everything possible about healthcare. That single phone call had transformed her from a desperate teenager into someone with hope, purpose, and a clear path toward her dreams. Elvis's simple gesture had solved her family's immediate crisis while opening doors to her future career. The ripple effects of that backstage conversation were just beginning to spread through her life. But the true measure of Elvis's kindness wouldn't be fully understood for decades. The teenager had no idea that her story was just starting to unfold. The young woman graduated from nursing school with honors. Her father was there in the front row, healthy after years of successful treatment. She was hired full-time at the clinic where she had worked throughout school. She spent several more years learning advanced patient care and medical administration. But she had bigger plans developing in her mind. She opened her first nursing clinic in South Memphis. The neighborhood was rough. Most residents couldn't afford regular health care. She charged what people could pay, sometimes accepting payment in groceries or home repairs. She never turned anyone away for lack of money. The clinic struggled financially in those early years, but she kept it running through pure determination. Her father lived for many healthy years after his cancer diagnosis. He watched his daughter expand to a second clinic. He saw her marry and held his grandchildren before he passed away peacefully. She never forgot that those precious extra years with her father existed because of Elvis's intervention. For decades, she kept Elvis's story completely private. She worried people would think she was making it up or trying to get attention. When reporters asked about her success, she credited hard work and good mentors. She never mentioned the concert that changed everything. Even her own children didn't know the full story until they were adults. She established a healthcare scholarship program. The fund provided tuition support for low-income students pursuing medical careers. She quietly funded it through her clinic profits, never revealing its connection to Elvis's original help. Over the years, the program has supported dozens of young people through medical school. Most of them now work in underserved communities across the South. Her 3 children all chose healthcare careers without any pressure from their mother. One specializes in pediatric oncology at St. Jude Children's Hospital. Another became a nurse practitioner working with homeless populations. The third runs mobile medical clinics in rural Tennessee. They grew up hearing stories about helping people regardless of their ability to pay. She eventually operated multiple clinics across Memphis. Her facilities served the city's poorest neighborhoods, providing everything from routine checkups to chronic disease management. The clinics employed dozens of people and treated thousands of patients annually. Her clinics had provided medical care to tens of thousands of people over the decades. During the COVID pandemic, she finally decided to share her Elvis story publicly. She was considering retirement after a lifetime of service. A local newspaper was writing about healthcare heroes, and she realized her story might inspire other young people facing impossible circumstances. She revealed Elvis's role in her success for the first time after keeping it secret for decades. The story spread quickly through Memphis and then nationwide. People were amazed that Elvis had quietly helped so many individuals without seeking publicity. She received hundreds of letters from other Elvis fans sharing similar stories of his private kindness. She discovered that Elvis had helped many people over the years, always asking them to keep it secret. Her brief backstage conversation with Elvis has now touched countless lives through her medical work and scholarship program. Her clinics continue serving Memphis's most vulnerable populations. Her children carry forward the same commitment to helping others regardless of their circumstances. This story reveals something profound about how one person's compassion can multiply across generations. Her work reached multiple generations of patients and caregivers who continue spreading hope through the communities that need it most. The next time you witness someone's small act of kindness, remember that you might be watching the beginning of a story that will impact thousands of lives. This account shows us how one moment of genuine compassion can transform countless lives. For many, moments like this remind us that Elvis's kindness was part of his legacy, alongside his music and movies. That backstage conversation lasted less than 5 minutes, but it launched decades of medical service that touched thousands of patients across Memphis. The story reminds us that those with influence can create ripple effects through the smallest gestures. Her clinics, scholarship fund, and the lives she saved all started with one piece of paper and a phone number. A brief mentor's gesture at a concert became a lifetime of returning that gift to others who needed it most. If you know similar Elvis stories or want to share how a small kindness changed your life, leave a comment below. And subscribe for more personal Elvis stories that reveal the man behind the legend.